Okay, this is episode 12 of the Stuart Foley Dreadnought project. Last episode I was having a little bit of fun putting the neck on this ship and comparing it with the Constellation hull. I think in this episode, just for some fun, I'm contemplating seeing what it would look like kind of with the, dink around with the saucer. I'm going to go 7. And what I want to do actually is I want to add an empty image. And then we're going to go open, and then we're going to go into my documents. Actually, we're going to go into my desktop because I have a separate folder, and what I need to do is actually go into that folder and see which picture I'm wanting. I am wanting Constitution 10. Okay, so I'll go back into Blender and let's find Constitution 10. There it is right here. Okay. Let's scale this. There we go. And what we can do is go to 3, which you kind of can't see it because it's in the way, so that's going to control 3 because that picture is in our way. Okay, let's take this and go, you can kind of see that yellow. Let's go rotate X90, and then let's go to R1. And this is kind of funny because this is basically the same picture as, scale it up a little bit more. And let's grab it, X, and let's bring it forward. And let's grab it on the Z and bring it down a little bit. Let's scale it up some more. And one of the things we can do with this is we can actually take our transparency and set it to 0.5. And then that way, actually let's set it to 0. I think, I don't remember if the higher number than 0. 0. Let's try 1 or 2. Let's try that, see what that does. Yeah, that makes it even lighter. So we need to look from above, and let's grab it to the Y, bring it out a little bit. Let's go back to 1. Let's push Z. Okay, that allows me to, let's grab it to the Z. That way I can actually basically scale this to the, can actually scale this to the picture, grab it to the X. It's pretty close. But I think it's pretty darn close. Now what's funny about this too, this picture here actually shows, if you look real close, it actually shows the steps in that ship, which would be way too big. If that's what it's supposed to be, is the steps. Okay. Anyways, I think let's scale it down just a hair. Is it bigger or is it littler? It's littler. Let's grab it on the Z, bring it down just a hair. Let's grab it X and bring it over. That's pretty close, which is funny because if you notice in the area where the deflector dishes are, one of them's sticking out a little bit further and one of them's a little bit lower. But I got the hanger bay kind of sort of matched up. I think I need to scale it. Let's scale it just a hair bigger there. Let's grab it to the X and bring it. Yeah, that's about as close as we're going to get, I think. But if you notice our decks, that's a little closer. So it's funny, these hand drawings aren't exactly. Now let's take this transparency back to 1 point, and then bring it out, and you'll notice, whoa. Oh yeah. And then let's go Z. So now let's go from the top. Because we're going to kind of reference these. Now let's go back to the side. Now one thing I kind of noticed, it seems like the engines on the original Enterprise seems like they're longer. Yeah, maybe not. We'll see when we go to model them. Because they do definitely are supposed to have the same type engine, which could or couldn't make sense. It depends on how successful of an engine design it was, and with spaceships it might just be easier for them to basically build one type until they come along with like a better type or something. But at the same time, they could basically have had, slightly different designs, and they could have been different sizes, just like, even aircraft carriers of today. One class will have certain type reactors and turbines and this and that and the other, and they're the same thing, but the next class they might totally change them around. So now that we got that kind of set up just for grins and we're looking at it, let's go 3D a little bit. And actually, how far are we out there? Actually, I've still got that selected, so I want to grab it and go Y just a little bit more. I want to take that out a little way further away from home. There we go. And deselect it. Okay. We're in object mode. I want to go Shift C, even though I'm pretty sure I'm in the center there. I want to make sure that I'm in the center. Okay. Let's take, and we're going to create, we're going to add, we're going to go with a cylinder again. We're going to go from the side, our cylinder. This is one of the things that's kind of neat. This is what I was going to show you a little bit. If we drag this out a little bit, we go into here, and we go new, come down to diffuse, and we can actually, we could shade this. One of the things where this could be useful is that you could shade your you can shade your different sections of this model kind of different colors. Or the same-ish kind of color. Actually, once I connect it, I could just use the materials out of the hull, because this is going to add a material. If I kind of shade this almost the same, I want to kind of get away from the gray. I'm going to leave that net gray for the time being, though. That's too purple. That's almost the same color. We're going to go with that, and then we're going to. Whoopsie. Oh, I didn't know you can unset it. That's kind of cool. But there's one you can actual type in there, and let's just say SAUBLU. We'll just call it saw blue. Okay. And that's the name of that material now. So, okay. And sometimes you got to be careful when you're. And we don't have the auto smooth and the double on, which is fine for the time being. We'll do that a little bit later. Yep. One thing I do want to do, I think I already messed it up though, should be still on this, X, Might have to actually redo it. Let me delete this. Okay. Let's try this again. Let's go add. Let's go mesh. Let's go cylinder. Okay, now here it goes where it says add cylinder and it says vertices 32. I want to go more like about. Let's make it about 60, because we're making this disc large. There we go, 60. Making that disc large, and I want it to be more rounded. There's different ways of doing it, but since we're really wanting this to be a round effect on this key thing, I want it to have 60 sides. So, and it seems like you got to do that from the get-go. And I'm not going to worry about the color right now. I'm going to hit my T. But what I am going to do is come back up here. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to change this 10 to an 11. So I actually need to get a new zip or a flash drive. Start saving some of these unseparate flash drives. Okay. So I got this, and what I want to do now is, and I'm in object mode actually, which is kind of funny. I want to scale this to the Z. I'm going to skinny this thing down some to about right about there. I'm going to grab it on the Z, and I'm going to bring it up. You notice I kind of, not exactly perfectly, but I tried to basically, let's grab it to the X. I tried to kind of match this this deck thickness here. Okay, so let's take this, let's grab it to the Z, let's bring it down. And actually, let's grab it to the X. Let's bring it up here a little bit. This is kind of an interesting the Constitution class. Grab the X. Actually had a kind of interesting hull for a couple of reasons, and one of the reasons was that Let's grab it to the... See, it had such a... it was like it had the taper, but the taper didn't kind of totally go around it. It went around it almost, except for where you got to the back, and then it kind of leveled out and stuff. Okay, let's grab this again. Grab it to the X, and let's bring it right dead center. We want this more or less centered. And it's funny, if you notice these computer core things, this is supposed to be, I think, the cores of the computer. 15 is lower primary computer core. These are actually supposed to be computer cores. And then they actually show kind of like that. You can see these people in here. There's actually little figures that are kind of black with this. So you're guessing those are about 6 foot. So these are 10 foot, give or take 10 foot decks, which is kind of normal on ships. So anyway, these computer cores are in here, but they're not actually centered exactly with the ship. So if we grab this on the Z and we bring it down, and we kind of see, one of the things I use as a trick is you could actually come kind of like dead center of the bottom of this thing, and then put your marker here, or you can kind of do it from the top. But I think, I mean, we're kind of guessing it, but if this thing on this drawing, if this thing is supposed to be basically the center, like right about there. So we need to grab this to the X a little bit, and we need to bring this over, and we're I'm eyeballing this. Like I said, I'm not. And you can actually, let's see, grab this back to the Z. Let's bring this up. So one thing you'll kind of notice is, and it actually has a little bit of thickness. They're actually showing a little bit of thickness on this drawing. So that's pretty close to being centered, because those cores things, not actually centered with the bridge per se, with the center of the saucer, but the bottom's pretty much centered. So that's pretty close to centered. Okay, now if we look from the top, and we're way over here. Now, this is kind of funny. These aren't exactly the same saucers. They're not exactly on the same neck arrangement kind of thing. So there's, again, I have some options. I can connect these. I can do, and like I said, I'm trying to make this ship, and it's not the Enterprise. I'm not, in a sense, I'm not trying to make the actual Constitution class. I'm trying to make a Dreadnought. But I'm trying to blend in parts of the Constitution class to give it more of the original series flavor. So the idea is kind of like whoever was designing this ship basically said, I don't want to change. I want to more or less use the saucer from a Constitution class, the engines from a Constitution class, the support necks from a Constitution class, but we're totally going to redo the secondary hull to carry a lot of shuttles and or have bigger engine rooms in the bottom of it, because we're going to put more engines and so on and so forth. So, and kind of, I don't know, they could even use that basically in the story if they want to, is that's one of the reasons they rejected it, is that they wanted it to be even more modified. Like this is too limited or something to that effect. Okay. Let's take Let's take and zoom in here. And let's right click right here. Put our 3D cursor right here. And then that way we can scale. Oh, now, to start with, I kind of want this to be a, I want this to be a, I need to scale this to the Z. I actually need to basically kind of make this one deck thick, and I'll show you why. We're going to scale this more or less to one deck thick. I'm going to grab it to the Z. We're going to bring it up. It's still a hair thick. Let's scale it to the Z just a tad more. Let's grab it. The Z, let's bring it up. And the reason I'm going to do that is because what I want to do is I'm going to put this undercut in here. This undercut was in the Enterprise, all the way around the Enterprise. So one of the ways we're going to do this is we're going to go to 7. And we're going to zoom in here on the 7. And we're going to put our marker there on top. And then we're going to go into Tools. And we're going to, let's see, let's find it here. Let's go to Physics, is it? Animation. Create, Tools, Edit, Duplicate, Link, Joins. No, I actually think we got to go to Edit Mode. And here we go. We're going to subdivide this. Whoopsie, except for the problem with that was that it... we need to Control Z that one. We had 60 and we turned that into 120. I don't need 120. What I need. Oh, I know what I'm messing up. Okay, let's go back to the top. Okay, now what we can do, and we can do it grade this too because we have the whole thing selected. So we go back to 1. Back to 7. What we can actually do is, and we can kind of use this one here as, let's call it a cheat template. We can extrude. Actually, I think we hit scale first. Extrude. Scale, extrude. No, maybe we hit extrude and then scale. E. Yes, there we go. Now if you notice what I did when I scale extruded here, added. Okay. Extrude scale, we can do it again. Extrude. Extrude scale, we can do it. Whoopsie, now let's go there. Extrude scale, let's do it again. Extrude scale. So, might even have too many already. But the point is, now let's go back to 1. Each time I did that scale extrude, no, I didn't put any on the bottom. I should have had some things on the bottom there. But one thing it did, since I scaled it, and I'm not sure. I don't think you can tell it to scale it to the X and the Y without scaling it to the Z. Actually, I think there is. I think you can put a constraint on it. Again, over, I think, an N, and I'm not sure exactly how to do it, but I think you can. I need to learn more about scaling, because I think you can actually tell it that you can constrain it to 2 axes, and then that way I could actually make it keep making a circle, but it isn't going to get thicker. Because I can look at this now in the Z. Oh yeah, see, it did make the whole thing. So now what I got to do, since it did that, which is kind of weird because I think it kept that whole top line, is I can hit A. And I can box this. And what's kind of funny too is I did a whole bunch of this. I could actually do this like one at a time. So I could go control. And I could actually probably actually have drug out my, let's see, let's go scale to the Z, hit 0, and that actually probably didn't change those lines any because they were already parallel with each other, hit A. But now this, I could go box. And I could go to the smallest one there, get all those. And actually I can put my cursor, you watch this, I'll put my 3D cursor right there. And then I can go scale to the Z, hit the 0. Now if I hit my Z, now if you notice, I have all those circles on the bottom. The circles on the top. And the reason that shading looks so funny is because it has multiple faces on it. So that's probably what I just did isn't probably the smartest way to have done that. I would probably actually have been better to take my original circle like Control Z, C. That's my original circle. I just Control Z down to it. So what I probably actually could do is go to the 7. And actually, you could do this from the side, but I think I want to do it. I want to do this from the top because I want it to scale from the center of the top, which actually makes it from the center of the circle. So if I zoom way in, let's get this toolbox out of the way. So we're going to zoom in here. That's all the way in, and I'm going to right click on that, and that puts it. I'm scrolling my mouse wheel out. Okay, now if I go ahead and look at the side angle. Okay, now what I want to, this is what I'm talking about. I could actually do this. I could go scale. And then I can drag this until, now you got to remember part of this dome, part of this part of this hole, what happened, it's at Z so we can actually see it through there. Let's go scale some more. Let's bring this top edge all the way basically to where that's to the front of that hole. Trying to move it. Oh, they are. Hit the key. Okay. Now, it looks a little bigger on the back, and it will, because you had the little impulse engine things hanging out there. And what I was starting to say is, actually, this picture, if you notice, it's not exactly perfectly level either. It's kind of level, but it's not exactly level. So, unless they actually raised up this front part of the saucer section, which I don't think they did. And it's kind of funny. This model, for being a 1960s TV show, this model was actually fairly elaborate. A lot more than what people thought. Okay. Let's take... I think that's... what would you say? Close enough for government work kind of thing. Okay. So now let's take like this. Let's go A. Okay. Let's grab the bottom of this. And let's grab it and go Z with it and go up until we basically hit the bottom there. Let's oh, now this might be a little bit of a problem here. I'll try it with the cursor there. If it doesn't work, we'll see what we can do. This scale, and I'm trying to bring the taper. Okay, let's look at this front. Let's grab it a little bit. Grab it to the Z. Bring it down. Bring it down a little bit lower than that. Okay, let's scale it again. Okay. Let's grab it to the Z, bring it up there. Let's scale it out. See, if you I call it rocking. It's like rocking a car in a snowdrift. Play with it back and forth, play with it back and forth. Okay, now let's look at this thing. If you notice, now we have almost... Let's go to object mode. Let's grab this. Let's grab it to the one. Let's bring it out. Let's grab this one. The one. Let's bring it out a little bit. Hey. Okay. Now if you notice, and if we go to the Control 3, now you notice something right away. If we put the original Enterprise hull, and actually I'm kind of questioning this, because if you notice the windows, especially the big three windows on the front of that saucer, because putting this in scale, you notice basically that the Enterprise saucer on the Constitution class Enterprise on this Dreadnought, that the Dreadnought definitely had a much bigger saucer. In fact, I think, and I don't know if it reflects on this, but it had a lot larger. It had a lot larger. I don't know, bulge on top. It had a much larger bulge on the bottom. It had more decks, and I even think the center of the saucer was basically flat, and it had I think it had 3 decks, as compared to 2 decks. If we go back to 1 here and we hit Z, you notice the Enterprise had basically 2 main decks in the outermost part of the saucer. And one of the decks went around kind of like the outskirts of the second deck down went around the outskirts of the saucer, and then you had machinery and or phaser stuff and or sensor stuff and or whatever, kind of like in this place where it's too small for there to be a functioning deck. They put machinery and stuff in it because it was almost too small for people to be inside, and where they have that curve there. Same thing up here, where anywhere where they have kind of like a cramped up area, then they either use it for storage or they store different stuff. And then the actual part of the ship where they have big decks, they can have the big decks. And maybe they have a curved bulkhead, but that's not really a problem as long as it's a person can fit in there. But these little squeezy ones are more or less bilge area. So again, what I'm getting at is if it's kind of interesting, the idea that if they used the original, if they went ahead and used more or less a Constitution class secondary hull or primary hull, the saucer section, and they threw it on a like a hull like this, especially a wide hull like this, you can see that in some ways it kind of gives you the sense of how much bigger a Dreadnought was, because the Dreadnought saucer is bigger than this saucer. But what I was starting to say, once I modeled this, we're going to see, because I think the bridge in this science, they actually had a lot of science labs on the Enterprise, and this little part that was right below the bridge, this big roundy part, was actually a big science, kind of a science thingy. It had science offices, labs and stuff in here, so and the actual pictures of the actual original series Dreadnought, I don't think they had that shape as much. They actually didn't. It was more of like they had this bulge like this, and then they almost reversed it on top. It was bigger, and this was when the guy that was talking to me, named John, he was actually drew this in like Photoshop, or not Photoshop. He drew it in Microsoft Paint, I think, and he was talking about he was just kind of splicing stuff together to try to get an idea, kind of a flavor of what this ship would look like, and he made the two different variations. And now I'm playing with it in 3D, but like I said, what I want to do, I want to kind of give it a lot of the original series flavor, and also, like I said, they could use that kind of as an argument that it's not proportional, that it needs a bigger saucer. That using the Constitution parts, even say if they were going to retire one of the ships, and the argument, hey, we could take them parts and put it on this ship and build a new class of ship. Okay, so what I want to do now, I actually should probably end this here and get into the next one, because the saucer is going to take, I think, a couple sessions to draw. But the basic part of drawing this would be, I've got to select it again. Go into edit mode, go into face mode. We can select this face and delete it. Which is kind of cool. It kind of gives you a look at the inside. Delete this one, face. And one of the things I could do is select that face and then alt select. It's not wanting to select them. I wonder why that is. Is it because I have it on there? That's a little bit. Let's try that. Okay. Control. And actually, I think I can select them from the inside. The only problem is, yeah, I still think you can select them because it's double double-sided, so you don't have to actually move it to where. So that should be selected all the way around. Let's hit the T. Let's go into shading and smoothing. Let's smooth the faces. And hit the T. Okay, and what that should do is go to object mode. Now see, that looks like a ring, and it's pretty smooth around that taper. And the reason it's smooth around that taper is because partially because I have 60 faces instead of 32. So it takes a lot of that rough look away. And what I was starting to say is what I can do with this now is from the top, I can select this top ring and I can bring it in and start making our lines. And I actually need to count these. I had counted them once, but I forget how many there are, or if I need to count the ones on the Constitution class, which I kind of really need to do because that's what I'm trying to emulate, more of a Constitution class dome on this ship, or saucer on this ship. So I need to find out how many sections, and then where I can do my math, because it's all, geometrically, it's pretty much geometrically stabilized. So, and then I can go from the bottom ring and look at the bottom, same thing. I can bring that ring in, and as I bring that ring in, I can also bring it in, and I can, as I bring the inner ring in fact, I'm probably going to do the bottom first, and I can do the bottom by looking at the bottom and looking at the top, and it would actually be easier. I can actually draw in that, make that bottom shape and stuff. And since it's pretty much all rings, it's just going to be a matter of bringing it in and matching the contour. And I want to, like I said, I want to look at some pictures, kind of like, in fact, I got his folder open. So what I'm talking about here is I can look at pictures like this. Now this is kind of funny because this picture, see, it kind of shows the rings here, and if you look really close, if you zoom in on it, you can see some of the sectional rings. It kind of gives you an idea of the windows and stuff like that in here. Okay, but if you look at the top, in this particular one, it almost don't look like, if they're there, they're just so light, you almost don't see the rings. So let's close that one down. Actually, I'm probably going to have to go online and find some line drawings. This one ain't too bad, but I don't think this shows the top. I think this just shows the starboard view, and it shows the way, kind of, sort of how the thing, but it doesn't show these lines. So I'm going to have to kind of find these lines here to, and there's a lot of pictures and stuff like that, but I'm going to have to find this grid, is what I'm talking about, so I can so I can match this up and stuff like that. And some of them got the windows and the lights and stuff like that. So I think I got enough reference material if I keep playing with this. Yeah, whatever. Don't save. I was just looking at it. So, anyways, and just to give you a little sneak peek, this is basically what the Foley. This is going to be, give or take, more or less the actual model that we're going to finish with. This is basically what I'm going to be 3D modeling. If you notice, I hope I'm not giving away a secret here too much. If you notice, the hull is a lot thinner. It's got better support pylons. Mr. Foley and me both didn't care a lot. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. How did I zoom in? Close that out. Don't save. Open it back up. Me and Mr. Oh, I know why. Because I'm trying to. I was actually trying to move it like you move it in Blender. Okay, so anyways, we both we didn't like that engine configuration with the engines coming straight out and with the pylons holding the engines from the bottom. So, and this kind of has a little bit of the refit flavor to it. It still has the original series engines, but it has a little bit of the Enterprise, like, you know, the first, not the kind of like the Enterprise A, but the Enterprise before they took I think it was either the Yorktown or the Saratoga in the movies, and they made it into the Enterprise-A, but after they had blew up the first refit Enterprise. But this is more or less, and there might be a little more tweaking to be done on this. But this can end up being basically the chosen design here. So I gotta get on to modeling that, and I've thought about actually when I'm doing things that are more or less redundant, I've thought about maybe even making a couple of these where I speed. I just basically draw, and you know, I might draw for 4 hours and actually work on making whatever shapes and stuff, and then just edit it to where it's kind of like a speed, where you can just watch me draw it in the speed tutorial, and then maybe stop and slow down if there's something where I'm, you know, if I'm demonstrating something new, if I'm going to use the cutting tool, or when I'm UV mapping, when I'm doing something that's different, because a lot of this is just redundant. So, you know, I really appreciate it if somebody has the patience and or the interest to where they literally kind of have watched, they've been following this with me, and they've literally, you know, watched probably 10 hours now of this, because like I said, some of it's just me talking and some of it's me doing more or less the same thing over and over and over and that kind of stuff, even though I might be working on a different shape or something. I hope I'm making it interesting. But you know, I'm sure if you watch these once or twice, or like I did, that some of the videos I watched, I would go, and especially if I knew they were demonstrating something, a certain thing that I needed to know, and I forgot how to do it, I'd go back and watch it and then pause it and play around with it or something, and that didn't bother me too much. But I know I can get pretty long-winded. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this right here. Save this. Got it as 11A. We'll save it, and in the next video I'll continue on working on, like I said, I might need to get some more pictures and stuff so that I can work this on the shape, because there's, again, two different ways I can actually go ahead and use these vertices and put in them grid lines, which in one way is advantageous, because if you actually build it into the model, then when you're UV mapping it, it's like really easy UV. It would be really easy to UV map it if you have reference lines already there, and or if you wanted to make it more of a normal map, you wanted to make it a simpler model with less polygons and less vertices and stuff, and you still maintain the same shape, then of course you can just use your UV maps and normal maps and stuff like that to put details in like that. So I could actually draw in all those lines using that map instead of actually putting in the model. I just think it's advantageous to put it in the model, and I think when you UV map it, it's a lot easier because you have the lines where they're supposed to go to a certain point, you know, and I do that with airplanes and ships, and sometimes that works and you can do that, and sometimes it don't. So, you know, a lot of times it's just education getting smarter. But anyway, we'll keep playing around with this a little bit because I'm having fun with this. But and then I'll get back into, like I said, I kind of need to take a look at modeling in this front, putting in our deflector dish, putting in our hangar bay doors, and then I need to do some research on how to, because I want them to, I know how to animate stuff to just like an aileron on an airplane where it moves back and forth. But I want to actually see if I can animate these clamshell doors so that they open up like an accordion door like they're supposed to. So that if they, once we texture this and we get the windows in it and all that kind of stuff, and it'd be really cool if you could, you know, rotate this around. Whoa. You know, rotate this around and actually watch them hangar bay doors open up, and then you can see the little shuttle in there in the turntable, and you could turn that in a circle with the shuttle on it, and you know, that'd just make it really neater as a 3D model to have it functional in a sense like that. So again, this was number 12, and we will see you in 13. Thank you for watching.